Congresswoman Laurel Lee is standing by, and we're going to be with her in a second out of Florida. But let's get to the big three.
Number 3.
Democrats, in the minds of the American public, are lower than the Dead Sea. What are we talking about here? Well, let's take a look. The net approval rating for Democrats in Congress, the lowest ever. Look at this. They are 55 points underwater. Their approval rating is south of 20%.
That is Howard Enton of CNN talking about Democrats, 18% approval rating for their congressional efforts. And everyone said, Hakeem Jeffries says, that's an outlier. Okay, let's go back to the last time they did the poll in July. It was 19%. Nothing's changed. We're going to talk about what is going on with the 28 contenders and the chances of keeping power in 26.
Number 2.
There are two parts here. There is price level, and then there's the inflation rate. And the price level just got out of control during the disastrous 4 years of Biden.
That is Scott Besson, Economic Outlook for 26. New numbers and signs of dramatic fiscal awakening is clear. Also, pitfalls expected. What it means for all of us.
Number 1.
We have a massive armada formed, by far the biggest we've ever had in South America. He could do whatever he wants. It's all right. If he plays tough, it'll be the last time he's ever able to play tough.
That was talking about Maduro, and that's the President of the United States. Showdown in Venezuela as Maduro exit seems imminent, hopefully before Christmas. They're taking tankers, shutting down the airspace. We look at the stakes, and we'll talk about Venezuela in a moment. Congresswoman Lee, welcome back. You with Judiciary and Energy, but just on the surface, are you content with the direction of the pressure we're putting on Maduro?
I am. I think one of the things that President Trump has done that is so important is really reestablished the U.S. as a leader on the world stage and has built respect from other world leaders. And the point here is that if we impose sanctions and don't enforce them, then they end up being totally meaningless. And I think the president and Secretary Hegseth are ensuring that those sanctions do what they were intended to do, that we enforce them, and that will lead to deterrence down the road from countries that are problems, dangers around the world. In the case of Venezuela, we know all kinds of challenges, beginning with the importation of illegal drugs and continuing to their defiance of these kinds of sanctions.
What's pretty amazing is that they're able to, for decades now, just to stay in power. Hugo Chavez to Maduro, corrupt election after corrupt election. In comes China, in comes Russia, in comes Iran, in comes Hezbollah, and they're just flourishing there. I did not know that 80% of their oil is sold to China at a discount, some through these Gulf tankers. And then former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says it's not just about Venezuela. Listen, cut 7.
The Cubans continue to guard Maduro. That's been a longstanding practice. We shouldn't forget Cuba. The economy in Cuba also is very brittle. And so the combination of tool sets, right? At sea, we could close the airspace over Venezuela, make it very difficult for anybody to get in or out with anything. Those are the kind of things that take all the foreign exchange dollars away from Maduro, which is what's been propping him and the Cubans up for so many years.
So that does, in Florida especially, Congresswoman, Cuba matters.
Absolutely. We have an extraordinary community of Cuban exiles that live here in Florida who, many of whom still have family that lives back on Cuba and to really have suffered at the hands of the regime. This is very important for many Floridians, not just as it relates to Venezuela, but as you point out, this destabilizing force that is affecting the entire world with these alliances and their defiance of sanctions that have been imposed.
So there's a poll done, and there's overwhelming support, and a supermajority of President Trump's voters nationally and in key congressional districts support reforming supervision. 80% overall. You guys introduced the Safer Supervision Act, received overwhelming support, as I mentioned. So your thoughts about how this gets implemented, and that's just putting from oversight into every activity, right?
Right. So supervised release was designed to basically be oversight for individuals who are leaving federal prison, coming back to our communities, which is the vast majority of people who get incarcerated do come back. And it was designed to both promote community safety and also to help these folks reintegrate in a way that is safe and that is accountable. And what this legislation would do is make sure that we're making individualized assessments, that judges are really looking at what was the underlying offense. Is this person a danger? How should supervised release be imposed? How should it be conducted? And really using it on the cases that need that kind of oversight for people who actually are posing a danger. We have seen what happens when criminal justice policies that are not data driven, that are not common sense, are implemented. I mean, it can be absolutely disastrous. So, what this bill does is really the opposite. It takes us to a place where we need to think about how we're using this tool, and the goals here of community safety and actually supporting that reintegration are very much aligned. When we keep people accountable, when we create incentives, that actually makes our communities safer.
Right. I mean, no one wants the prisons just to be overflown and warehousing people, but just letting them out the way New York is doing it, Florida doesn't, and Los Angeles is not keeping anybody safe.
Exactly. And we have seen those tragic consequences. So, one of the things that we want to do is ensure that our federal probation officers are devoting their time and their energy to those people who actually do pose a risk of reoffending, or those cases that really could pose a significant impact on community safety, rather than just being, in every case the same and checking boxes. This would really get back to what is the point of the supervised release and be a great help. And it is supported by all groups that intersect in this in real life. So everyone from federal law enforcement, federal probation officers, all the way over to the Prison Fellowship. A lot of the really great groups that work on criminal justice policy, like the Reform Alliance, the America First Policy Institute, all of these groups have come together to support this idea because they've seen this in practice and know that this would be a great improvement.
So we know there's a lot at stake this year in the midterm elections, and history says only 3 times in 100 years has a president held on to majorities in both houses on the midterm election. It was Clinton. It was Bush 43 in his first term, and it was FDR in one of his terms. Here's Speaker Johnson speaking about what's at stake. Cut 25.
This is not your father's Democrat Party anymore, and they want to dismantle the very foundations of our republic and everything that we all stand for and that Charlie Kirk evangelized. Everything, as has been said here, everything is on the line in the midterms of 2026, and we have much more to do. But if we lose the House majority, the radical left, as you've already heard, is going to impeach President Trump.
You agree? Don't we have impeachment fatigue? Don't they sense that?
Well, I think the speaker is unfortunately is absolutely right there. We've already seen efforts just in the last few months of baseless impeachment allegations against not only President Trump but also members of his cabinet. So I do expect that is what is at stake. That if Republicans lose the majority in the House, that we will spend the subsequent 2 years chasing after and fighting back against these baseless impeachment allegations. And look, as a former judge, I think it's so important that that tool is used when there is a legitimate basis in law that follows, only those circumstances where it is called for, not as a political tool. So I do think that's what's at stake, and that should be a real motivator for Republican voters to come out on Election Day.
Yeah, just also, if I'm a Democrat, I would say stop the obsession with Trump. Like it or not, he's going to be gone in 3 years. And all you're going to say is, I never liked him. That's not much to run on, it doesn't seem. Congresswoman Laurel Lee, have a fantastic Christmas. Thanks so much for your time.
Great to see you again, Brian.
All right, back in a moment. So Frank Bisignano is in studio. He's the 18th Commissioner of the Social Security Administration. But that's not enough for him. He also is the CEO of the IRS, managing both agencies at the same time and doing exceedingly well. And Frank, you never seem rushed. You never seem stressed. Now that you've, I guess, got appointed in May, here we are in December. What has it been like?
Oh, it's just been kind of a really, really great experience. The leadership of President Trump, I think, is unparalleled. I think the cabinet's the best cabinet in the history of America. And to be able to play a role in serving both Social Security and IRS has been probably the highlight of my career.
Let's talk about Social Security. Right away, you came in, Elizabeth Warren's breathing down your neck and saying wait times are too long. People get on the phone, they can't get a call back, and you tackled this head on.
Yeah.
How did you first tackle it, make it more efficient so people can get a call in maybe after 5 minutes instead of 45.
You know, it's interesting. The company I had run did really 4x the amount of calls that Social Security received. And I was always an engaged operator, and I went and looked at our technology and our processes and how we thought about it. And the team at Social Security came along fabulously. You know, we have great career employees who wanted to win. And we took what maybe was the high in, fiscal year 24 of 40 minutes down to 7 minutes for waiting.
And can you put in pedestrian terms how you did it?
Yeah, we analyzed the phone calls. I call it process engineering. We analyzed the phone calls, built some bots that would take care of simple things. We rolled out a phone system to all the field offices. That's not in this audit, but phone calls went down 30%. We built staffing models to be able to maximize. We did something we like to call segmentation. So we had specialists on topics, and we ended up answering 65% more calls than we did the prior year with higher customer sat. And obviously, Senator Warren didn't like that result. So she wanted to go on the airways and say, it's not true, it's wrong. And we brought in a career executive to talk to her about it. And she said she didn't understand what we were saying. So we concluded we were having an audit. And the audit reports exactly everything she was told, exactly everything.
An independent audit.
Independent audit by the Inspector General.
So you think that Elizabeth Warren would say, great job, Frank?
No, I think it's become clear to me. The idea is to say that we are cutting Social Security when we're improving Social Security. The president's leadership has given a platform to protect and preserve Social Security and, delivering the best service. We had another instance where 1/3 of the people who come into field offices want replacement cards. 9 out of 10 people are, under 65 who are doing that. So we're digitizing it. Do it online, do it over the phone, and that's going to take down field office volumes. People are like, they're going to cut field, the Democrats want to say they're going to cut Social Security. They want to have less field office. No, we're going to make service better, faster, quicker, and the way Americans operate. We will always have field offices. We will always answer the phone, and we will be a digital-first organization. We have 98 probably today million digital users. We're going to have a bold goal of 200 million.
So now for Social Security recipients, the president famously said on the campaign trail he's going to give seniors a tax break and he's going to give no tax on tips. So with seniors, there's only so much you could do legally. So you're going to do this in a tax break, right? For people receiving Social Security. How?
Up to $6,000 deduction for Social Security recipients. So that's, there's a grid, but call it $6,000 for Social Security recipients. And that's a huge tax benefit.
And you're not going to feel that till March, April if you apply right away when the year changes, right? It's going to take a couple
it'll
months.
be on your tax. It'll be on people's tax returns. I mean, we're going to, one beautiful bill is going to cause the best tax refund season ever. The benefits are off the charts. No tax on tip. Seniors, the Trump account is an outstanding, wealth generator. If you think about
$1,000,
$1,000 for at 60 years old will be $500,000.
And what about the fact that Ray Dalio has now chimed in? Michael Dell has chimed in.
I mean, Michael Dell more than chimed in. I think it was $600 billion of chiming.
Yeah. Hopefully people will continue to do that. You want a way to give back, but you want to do it in a way that is going to grow something for someone rather than just hand out something.
100%. I think it was maybe the largest stroke of genius for wealth creation ever done by a president.
So Frank, do you ever roll in that? Do you ever roll in the investment portion of it, or is that something that's going to go through the banks?
No, that'll be a process which will be well defined. We have the great Form 4547. I love saying that form number, which is the form which will apply for Trump accounts on. That'll all be done through the IRS in coordination.
Just for 1 year?
Well, that'll be for this year's pilot program.
Okay.
Also
See
to
how it goes.
apply.
So
But you don't have to have any income to have a Trump account.
Right.
And
So you have to be born in
family and others can contribute as a way of gifting
Right.
to a Trump account.
So that's awesome. And think about that. You don't really know what to do. We used to give in the 70s, you used to get gift certificates. No, bonds.
Yeah.
You used to get bonds. Here's $20.
I gave them to nieces and nephews of
course.
mine.
So-
And then I'd give a share of stock or something or like that over time.
Yeah, to whet people's appetite and get them involved in the process and understand, make them ask questions. Well, what does this mean? How do I grow it? What does the stock market do? Frank, one of the things I'd love for someone like you to work with Linda McMahon is get financial literacy in schools.
Oh,
why don't we
it's
learn
the
just the
number one
basics,
item.
right?
Yeah,
why
I
is there
think-
not a push for that?
Yeah. Well, given the career I had before that, we always worked on financial literacy. We think it's one of the most important. My mother ran the household on an envelope system to budget. Put $2 a month in so I could go to Catholic school.
Wow.
So I think my mom taught financial discipline very, very well in our household.
Let's talk about what the IRS did to help track down the Brown shooter. It turns out the IRS found out that he had rented a locker, a storage locker, and a storage unit, and that's where he killed himself and found his body. How did that play a role in hunting him down?
Well, we have heroic Americans all around this government, and many. I talked about the woman who ran the phone center and did Herculean work, even in the face of Elizabeth Warren criticizing us. This unit here is a special force for the whole government. I mean, members of criminal investigation unit had participated in helping in D.C. in the surge, in Memphis in the surge, and they're really, really very skilled operators. They're accountants and so a few called up who were in the area. And I met with them yesterday, the team that actually worked on this, and congratulated them and thanked them from all of us.
Did they work with the FBI or did they work with local officials?
Always. FBI, always helping across the board with Homeland Security. The president has created an administration that has great teammates and great team leadership, and Secretary Bessent has been off the charts in making them available before I got here. And obviously I follow a lead on that with him to help. And so we had people who called up during the shooting and wanted to go there immediately, who were working on that unit. And then subsequently, we were about a dozen who I met with yesterday. We're all detailed to help on this, and our financial. Once the heroic homeless person had identified the suspect, it kept moving in progress, and we did legwork for the FBI.
So that's fantastic. I never thought about that, but you did mention IRS agents carry guns. They do investigation. And so would you say, Frank, so you made all your money and had your success in the private sector, and maybe there's a view of people in government jobs that they're happy to punch the clock and just be done and get their security. Are you finding that government workers are much more competent and driven than you thought?
Well, I let me say this. My dad was a 44-year Treasury employee that retired from it. He was my role model, and he was the hardest working guy I know. So I told the employees, both in SSA and at IRS, I have a bias towards government workers because I saw my dad up early in the morning, and today he would be in ICE because that was in Treasury back in the day, post-Homeland Security. But I find an engaged workforce, an engaged leadership, people who want to get the job done. I got great leadership teams, and yeah, I'm positive Parkinson's law sets in sometimes.
What does that mean?
Parkinson's law was something I've studied. 1950s economists who studied the UK government and talked about how governments like to, leaders like large-scale employees and like to complicate process. So I've used it my whole career, and I actually hand out to all of leadership who reports to me the book on Parkinson's law.
Wow.
So we could delayer and increase the spans of control of management.
Yeah, Frank Bisignano is with us today. He runs the IRS, and he's also running the Social Security Administration. Pretty amazing. So it always bothered me when Elon walked in and he said, I'm firing all these people. And I thought, wait, they're people. So I'm not, we sometimes walk in the post office and our life just stops and we see unmotivated people and we think that everybody in the post office is like that. It's just not. So I hated to round that off like that. And now I'm inspired by the fact that you say people are inspired to be there. But I also harken back to Teddy Roosevelt. I forgot which president he helped get elected. And they said, what job do you want? He goes, can you help us out with this bureaucracy that we got this problem? And they said, well, your career's going to die there because you're never going to be able to move. But he motivated these people. He talked to them like he was their coach. We're going to do this. We're going to be better. We're going to hit these goals and set out goals.
Yeah.
And just because you work for government, it doesn't mean you can't set goals for people.
That's all we do.
Yeah.
That's all we do. And we go in both IRS and Social Security. We have a weekly operating indicator meeting on the performance of every metric in the business. And it's really the business of government, the business of making proper payments, the business of servicing the American public. It's all measurable and all, and it cries for technology.
So, Frank, the other thing, I was in Italy last year, and I was just talking to a couple of cab drivers. They had the same story. And they said, well, I go, with taxes, people build pools, they don't pay taxes. They don't pay taxes. I go, what do you mean you don't pay taxes? He goes, no, there's no really enforcement of taxes. So they have all this money that could be coming in, and they're not paying taxes on it. So you wonder why their infrastructure is falling apart. No one loves paying taxes, but our society can't roll if people try to skirt the system.
Yeah, I like to think about compliance, right? I think technology, AI will be greatly applied across Social Security. And across
Not yet,
IRS. We've done a bunch, but we'll do more. But IRS will be very, very, very armed over the next year with the best technology to be pure and increase compliance and do it in a manner. The objective at IRS is no different than the objective at anything I ever ran. We like to increase the top line while increasing service, right? Let's be kinder, gentler, more pragmatic. And I think we're probably way kinder and gentler than people think, but increase compliance and have a higher revenue.
All right. When we come back, a few more minutes with Frank Bisignano. He's here. And we have a few minutes, so we want to, if you have any questions, Kilmeade at foxnews.com. Don't move. Frank Bisignano is back with us today, and he's running the IRS. He gives us some time. That was enough. He's running Social Security. So, Frank, we talked about the $6,000 people are going to be able to maximize to write off if you're a senior getting Social Security. Now, Mitt Romney writes an editorial this week, and the headline's interesting. He's very wealthy, his family is. Mitt Romney says, tax the rich like me. He said one of the problems is the rich aren't taxed enough. Most of the people self-made success stories.
Yeah.
Do you guys feel like you're not taxed enough?
Listen, I've always, remember I said earlier, my dad retired from Treasury, so we had a deep affection to the financial system of the country, and, we never thought about anything other than paying taxes as required by law. I think when you look at the numbers people pay, they're significant, not
Isn't
insignificant.
the top 10% paying 80%
Yeah, it's
of the tax?
significant. It's significant, and so it's. I don't. I didn't read it. I've heard from multiple people. I think it's an interesting moment for Mitt to come out. And
What do you mean by interesting?
Well, it's just like something to say, right? It's like something to say, tax more to the rich. But we really got to have a great tax system, and what the president did with one beautiful bill will be good for the economy. Mm-hmm. People are going to get the largest refunds in history. I think 94% of the middle class will fundamentally get an increase here. Mm-hmm. That's big, and that's important. I think when you look at the statistics, 133 million will on average get $936 dollars more.
Wow. And that's going to come this spring. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's happening now, and ultimately it'll probably turn into more income for everyone because their deductions will get changed.
Last minute, big picture. How do you feel about the next generation of the country not enthralled with capitalism, who feel as though socialism is more attractive? Does that worry you?
There's a part of the next generation, right? A loud minority, not a loud majority. I've governed orgs for a really long time, and I see a lot of talented young people who want to work hard, compete, come from nothing and want something and have all of it in them. Right. So I think that will win the day, and I don't believe that we're going to succumb to it.
That's why you and Trump. You're optimistic.
No, man, I love it.
Frank Bisignano, thanks so much for everything you're doing with the IRS and with Social Security. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Lydia Moynihan joins us now. Lydia, welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me. Merry Christmas.
Good. I've been watching you brawl on CNN. How's that doing?
Never a dull moment. You know what? It really keeps you on your toes, and it's always feisty. And the best thing is you have to confront all of the best arguments that everyone is making and think through the implications of what they're saying. And so it's a lot of fun. It's a real debate,
So new numbers are in. The GDP grew at 4.3%. That is absolutely outrageous. The market has responded by going slightly up. I mean, the third quarters show that even in the face of the negative consumer sentiment and softening job market, the roughly $30 trillion economy started October on relatively solid footing because we didn't get any stats because of the shutdown. And could you imagine what this economy would be if we didn't stop working? Not us, not me and you, but the government didn't stop working for 2 months.
No, you're exactly right. To think even with that, here we are. And no we're going to top 4%. I mean, I think especially during the Biden era, we were used to sort of this essentially softening economy without a lot of growth. We sort of just accepted that. And his whole linchpin of his administration was going after all of this innovation, going after AI and crypto and all these things. And Trump came in, he's deregulated, and he's extended the tax cuts, and he's also encouraged innovation and growth, I think, more than any other president that I can remember, certainly in my lifetime, where he's wants to get the brightest minds with the biggest ideas into America. He wants to encourage that. He's excited about technology. He's excited about artificial intelligence. And I think that is really key. That's ultimately what's going to get us out of the sort of malaise that people have been feeling about the economy, because people have been feeling the pinch. Prices, and you played that thought from Bassett, which is a great way of describing it. Inflation is down, but the price levels, because of the 4 years we had under Biden, where we looked at inflation, was basically from when he entered to when he left, was up 25%. So people are feeling that. And the way that we get out of that, the way that we create an exciting new economy where everyone benefits, is by unleashing growth and innovation. And so I think that's very encouraging, and that's what the market is thrilled to see too, is that that's what Trump is doing. And we're seeing that reflected for the first time really in this GDP growth rate. And I think this is going to be the first of many positive reports that we get.
So here's some other numbers just came in. The corporate profits rose at $166 billion in third quarter, compared with $6.8 billion the previous quarter. I mean, that's stunning. This is what you're saying. Disposable personal income after taxes, adjusted for inflation, was flat. That's why people don't have the optimism the numbers have. A barometer of underlying growth that measures both private investment and household consumption held steady. The economy's remained resilient, as you know. Consumption, which constitutes 70% of the economic pie in a typical year, rose at 3.5%. Even as consumption's taken the reins back from investment, the economy maintains considerable momentum. Keep in mind, what experts like you have said, Lydia, in the past is the reason why the economy was beginning to rise is because the president came out with Liberation Day in April, and when they realized tariffs were coming, people were scrambling to buy. And they said, this is a false number. It's because people were buying to get ahead of tariffs. Now you can't say that, can you?
Yeah, it kind of feels like fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. I think a lot of these economists have lost so much credibility because that's what we heard since Trump took office. Well, I know it's okay now, but there's going to be a huge crash in a couple months. And I know it's okay now, but, after these and we just haven't seen it. And we keep hearing, oh, well, it's going to be a disaster. It's going to be a disaster. And it's not. What we're doing is working. And I think we've already brought in so much revenue because of the tariffs. We've already gotten so much investment. Of course, obviously, there's a big question mark about what the Supreme Court is going to rule. So that, I think, is sort of the one pain point and the one question mark that everybody still has. But if things continue as they're going, I think we're all going to be very okay. And I think, again, this is kind of what we saw with Reagan, where it's all about growth. Let's expand the pie instead of quibbling over, how much this person pays or this. Let's expand. Let's make sure that everyone is benefiting from the economic growth. And real wages, too, Brian, are up for the first time in years. So that's going to be encouraging. And, of course, I think once people pay their taxes this year, this is not normally something you would say that people are going to be excited after they pay their taxes, but I think people will be pleased to see they actually have more in their pocket than they may have anticipated.
Well, Lydia Moynihan, too. I just had I'm trying to impress you. I just had the head of the IRS here last half hour. And he said when people start getting their returns, that's going to be like a stimulus package. They earned it. It's the New Deal that the president came in and made those tax cuts permanent. Keep in mind, too, the second story in the New York Times, consumers spent 3.9% more from November 1st to December 31st this year compared with last year. So we know about consumer sentiment. We know about 36% approval rating on the economy. But somehow the consumer is also spending money. So unless you're going to tell me those numbers don't work, which I don't think you're going to say because November 1st, the government was open.
Yeah, no, I think people are trying to kind of put themselves in knots to try and explain that, the economy is really, it's a disaster. And that's just not the reality we're seeing. Again, people, I think, still are frustrated that prices are up. And again, unless you had deflation, nothing is going to reverse that. So people are upset, understandably, that their grocery bill is 25% higher than it was before Biden took office. But I think that is unfortunately normal. I think people are kind of recognizing that, and they're also seeing the good things that are happening. They're seeing the real wage growth is up, and they are still spending money. I think this is going to be a good Christmas. So I'm very heartened by this. Because again, as Brian, as you and I know, this is all about growth. This is all about innovation. This is all about expanding the pie, and that's exactly what we saw today. And so I think this is the best Christmas present the Trump administration could have gotten.
Right. And Lydia, we never know what's going to happen. You don't know if there's going to be, there's things like the pandemic, a terror attack, or anything like that. One of our ships gets hit, whatever it is. So I always open to the unexpected. That's one thing you and I both have learned. You can look at numbers and play it out, but in life has a way of interjecting itself into your predictions, especially economic predictions. But at least I could say Republicans have a plan, and we could say, well, that didn't work. Tariffs didn't work. Trade deals didn't work. The making those tax cuts permanent didn't work. Okay. Could I just please hear a Democratic plan outside spending? And their last 4 years was spending $6 trillion and almost doubling the deficit. And how did that go?
Right. And I mean, it's not like they're just spending random money. They're spending our money. They're raising taxes. So, of course, that's the counterintuitive thing is they're raising taxes, taking money from your and my pocket, and then in the hopes that somehow the government will do a better job spending our money, which, of course, never happens. So you're right. That's all that we've seen. And, of course, that is the entire reason. The Inflation Reduction Act, ironically, is why inflation is what it was for 4 years, because you pumped $6 trillion plus into the economy. Guess what? Things are going to get more expensive. But one other thing that I want to touch on as well that I've been, reporting a lot on is just artificial intelligence. I think, it's gotten such a bad rap. Everyone hears AI and thinks, oh, AI is going to take my job, and AI means that no one's going to work anymore, and this is going to be such a grim proposition. And some of the data actually that David Sachs, AI and Crypto Czar, has published basically shows that it's making us more productive, and people are not yet losing their jobs, and it doesn't seem like they're going to. And this is something that we've seen anytime there's a technological innovation. This was before my time, but, I'm reading about what people were writing about when computers first became more mainstream. And the thinking was, oh, no, we're not going to have any more accountants. We're not going to need any more mid-level executives. They were thinking we weren't going to need all of these roles, similar to the kind of narrative that we're hearing right now about AI. And that just didn't pan out. And technology never eliminates jobs. It creates and it increases productivity. So that's one other thing that I want to point to that I think people should be really optimistic about, because I think there's been so much fear-mongering about artificial intelligence, and we're just not seeing that borne out in the data. We're seeing more productivity. And again, that gets to the bottom line. When you have more productivity, that ultimately makes things cheaper. And that's how we're going to win this sort of affordability game here.
So, Lydia, the thing is, we're not saying it as pedestrians. We're listening to Sam Altman and Elon Musk say they're worried about it. When it first burst on the scene a couple of years ago and Sam Altman's doing his interviews, he's saying, I'm not sure what's going to happen with this. There is certainly dangers, and we don't trust China to avoid the danger. So it's up to us. That's why they have 80% are optimistic about AI. 36% of Americans are optimistic that AIs will make their lives better.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a very interesting breakdown of the numbers. Look, I do think the China threat specifically is concerning, and that's why we need to make sure that we're pushing America to innovate, and that's why we need to make sure that we're ahead of them. I think that's the biggest threat, is if it gets in the wrong hands, what does that portend? And yes, I know. There have been those narratives that, I think Elon said there's a non-zero chance there's an extinction event or something. Elon Musk says a lot of things. Again, his good buddy there is running AI and crypto and seems to be a lot more optimistic.
David Sachs.
So again, David Sachs. So I think what we're seeing is encouraging and not the extinction event that Elon Musk said there was a non-zero chance of. And again, Elon Musk is a scientist, so he looks at something and said, oh, there's 0.00001% chance that something bad could happen. It's a non-zero chance that could happen. That does not mean that it's likely or that it's going to happen. So
Lydia Moynihan, our guest in the New York Post.
I would just put that caveat.
I hear you. I know he's an extremist and a genius. Lydia Moynihan, our guest, is an economic business writer, expert, but knows everything. I'll know if these economic numbers are good. You know why? Because I'll know by watching CNN and MSNBC, they'll be talking about the Epstein files, or they'll be talking about naming the Kennedy Center, because they don't want to talk about this. They have no interest in doing that, yet it would broaden out their audience. And they would be saying, wow, you know what? We'll start reporting. But that's why, Lydia, you'll go on as an economic expert, and we're growing at 4.3%. And your question would be like, why is Bill Clinton's photos are released and not Donald Trump's of the Epstein files?
It's the Epstein files has become the sort of easy fallback anytime you want some sort of liberal outrage. And that's such a good point, is you only hear about if it bleeds, it leads, right? That's the adage that we have at a newspaper. And people are always focusing on the negative, right? So it's only a topic if there's a bad jobs report number. I highly doubt that there's going to be a lot of coverage of this GDP report, because again, it's good, and there's such an eagerness to focus on the negative, or again, if there's something that Trump has said that people don't like, he called affordability a hoax. That was a big talking point, because Donald Trump is a billionaire. He doesn't understand, right? So that's the news angle. And in this case, clearly there's not a news angle that makes him look bad. So I don't know that it's going to be much covered today.
And Lydia, I think that one of the best things we can do is when we go back with our families, we talk to your neighbors, find out what they think, right? And don't say like, who do you like, who you're voting for, but it's like, how things going money-wise? Is your business, are you a car salesman? Are people walking in? Are they looking to buy new? Are they looking to finance? I find that's the most interesting. You walk into a deli, instead of saying, how you doing? How's business? And this way you get a real sense if the numbers echo the feeling.
Right. And again, even some of these, it's difficult to understand what people are feeling when you're just looking at a consumer sentiment or whatnot. And so that's a great point. Instead of saying, when you think of Trump, how are you feeling?
Exactly.
What are you seeing in your business? It's such a good point because that's ultimately so much more important than an approval rating. For president.
Lydia, we're going to read your columns. I look forward to seeing you in the building again, and we'll have you back on the show.
Brian, such a pleasure. Merry Christmas.
All right, back at you.
What is with Jake Tapper?
He's such a. I mean, look, I almost got in a fight with Jake Tapper at the Super Bowl I forget when it was. I mean, the first Eagles Super Bowl, not the first, but it must have been. It was shortly after my brother's death, and he had done something that I thought was totally up, and I told him I would. If we weren't in front of a lot of people, I would knock him the out. And this is how much of a he is. He called my dad and demanded an apology.
What?
Yeah. He's a grown man. He called one of my dad's staffers and he goes and he said, I felt threatened and Hunter owes me an apology. And by the way, I felt incredibly justified. I'm not going to tell this story because it's too convoluted. But just that's who Jake Tapper is. I mean, he talks big, hides behind a pen and a desk. And I don't think that he contributes in any way to the discourse or provides any real journalism whatsoever.
Oh, that is Hunter Biden, 5 hours with Sean Ryan, the veteran, the Special Forces guy who's got a very successful podcast. So he says he had a problem with Jake Tapper even before Jake Tapper tapped in late and wrote a book about how inept his dad was. Tyrus, you are here. You're hosting Gutfeld tonight. You did a great job last night. You got your podcast. Yes. What is your thought about what Hunter's saying? Is he a tough guy now?
No, he's not a tough guy. I think this is desperation. I think this is trying to do what he's been able to do in the past where he goes on TV, says a bunch of stuff, gets a lot of attention, and maybe there is some sort of attempt now to try to get him back in the fold because what was it, 4 hours?
5 hours.
5 hours?
They said 5.5.
I think this is him trying to do some kind of damage control for himself, but again, I think it's 4 or 5.5 hours where there's not one sentence about accountability.
Right.
He's
Isn't
willing
that
to tell
typical of
everybody
addicts, though?
Yeah. Well, it's so typical of a lot of people today. I don't even think it's just drugs in general. Everyone's always the victim. Something happens. It's never what their role was or what they could do better. It's always everyone around them. I think people have another disease that's going around this country right now, not just with him, but people think other people think about them way more than they do.
Right.
So they sit around they meant to do that and they're after me and this, that, whatever. I don't think Hunter Biden was ever on the first mind of anyone in politics. He was just an embarrassment on his family, and that's just being real. And I don't think any of this helps. Right.
But they just to something you just said before, they did a study and they asked the American people who they think about, and most of the time they think of me. So that's I'm a little bit of an outlier.
You know what? You're a straight up honest guy. You're the first thing they see in the morning.
Yeah.
And so you're inspirational because a lot of times then they'll see you at 10 o'clock at night. So they're like, hey, this Kilmeade guy, he works. He's like the rest of us.
He's got an empty life.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I want you to hear
the Walking the Dogs video was awesome, though.
You like that?
Yeah, the mountain dogs are beautiful.
Yeah, he's still growing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Great dog.
Yeah, he's 8 months old. Tell me if this is bad. When he sees me, he wants to hug you, right?
Yeah.
But he's 80 pounds.
Yeah.
Right. I'm worried about when he's 120. Am I breeding a bad habit?
No.
130.
Well, here's the deal. I guess
it wouldn't hurt you.
My son is now 6'5", and he's 14, and he's 200 and I think it was 87 pounds or something like that. Whenever he sees me, he runs and hugs me. You just got to deal with it.
Okay.
Because you don't
want.
Well,
that's good.
You don't want a large living thing thinking you're not happy to see them.
Yes.
So I'd rather be uncomfortable with love than eventually one day aggressively get knocked over saying, you never loved me. You never held me.
So what is your take? I don't know if you've seen these numbers. I think it's going to affect your show tonight. I mean, they're through the roof. We're growing at 4-point-something%. We haven't grown at 4.2% in like 10 years. I mean, maybe that one year, that 1 month we were coming out of the pandemic. I mean, it's going to be, this is before you get your tax returns,
Yes.
before the tax on tips, before the tax cuts are permanent, before all these trade deals come through and the tariffs come off. I mean, this is pretty phenomenal. You know, the income went slightly up. So in the third quarter, our corporate profits were up $166 billion. A lot of people are 401ks who are going to be affected by that, let alone
Stock
people that
market,
work there. Yeah.
Like I got under the wing of Charles Payne, and this year
did you?
I got involved in stocks.
So did you know anything about stocks before you went with Charles?
Not
much?
Not enough to I understood how it worked. I just always had the wrong mindset when it came to investing and stuff like that. It wasn't something that I paid a lot of attention to. And then I started paying attention to it. And it took basically reading 3 chapters of his book.
Unbreakable Investor.
Yeah, Unbreakable. And then, I took up this formula. Whenever they woke cancel something, invest in it. So when they started attacking Tesla cars and the stock dropped, I jumped in.
Right.
And then Rocket Labs, same thing. I jumped in. And Rocket Labs is unbelievable. I showed in a bunch of other stuff. I just started looking at that, but then I started looking at it like this is savings that grows that you can control and manage, and so and the stocks are incredible.
Tesla sold me on the robots.
Yeah, they're coming.
Like last year,
Labs,
when the robots. I mean, that robot is flexible. That robot can carry the ball in the NFL game.
Yeah.
Like the Russian robot just falls over. It looks like Gigantor in 1974.
Russian,
yeah. But the Tesla robots.
Listen,
they're running obstacle courses.
There's going to be, I think you're going to see a complete shift in the next, I'd say, 10 years with manual labor in this country, because these robots, they can work at night. They don't need breaks. You got to, I think you change the battery or something like that. So it's going to be we're going to see in our lifetime a complete change in the way that we do business in America.
Tyrus, just give me an idea where you're going to be on your tour, because I know you're going to be on Gutfeld tonight. You're hosting.
Yeah.
But where are you going to be on your tour?
I got 2. I think my next shows are in Palm Beach, Florida. I think January 16th and 17th, I think. Something like that. But next we're going to be in Florida. Our tour kicks off in the end of January, and then February we're all over the country. California, we're in Chicago, we're all over the place. So,
where do you go?
Let me see here. I can punch it up for you.
Yeah, we got to go find out exactly where to get Tyrus. Yeah, just the website would be able to go. I know.
Oh yeah, you can look it up in my link. Oh, here we go. Let's see here. My comedy tour is
any minute.
Yep. Oh, this thing's stupid.
Follow Tyrus. Just Google Tyrus.
Just hit my. I'm all over the country, and you can check us out on Linktree
and Linktree tonight.
Yeah, Linktree tonight.